Supporting a distributed Scrum team is a common pain point for many Scrum Masters, but don't worry, in this video, I'm going to share a step-by-step guide on how to improve communication, effectiveness, efficiency within your distributed Scrum team, and also how to run all the Scrum events correctly, even though you're not sitting next to each other. A distributed Scrum team is a team where some team members or all team members work from different locations, either physically from these locations or remotely. For a distributed Scrum team to work, we need to sort of adapt the Scrum framework and the agile values and principles. But don't worry, the Scrum framework is pretty flexible. We can adapt the roles, the artifacts, even the events of Scrum to make it compatible with this new way of working. Before even talking about the Scrum events, let's start with a crucial first step, creating a working agreement, which is extremely useful for remote work. A working agreement is a set of rules, disciplines, processes that everyone in the team agrees to follow without fail in order to work better together. A working agreement contains a lot of things, usually the core working hours. How long will the sprint be? At what time will the Scrum events be? How will we communicate better together? What tools we'll use? What happens when I need someone in the team and this person is already off work? This is especially true when people are working from different locations, which is still manageable when the time zone difference is small, 2 hours, 3 hours. Different states in the US, still manageable. But what if we are separated by countries? We're talking about the time zone difference of 7 hours, 8 hours. That's hard to manage. For these two scenarios, let's see how each one of the Scrum events would play out, starting with a daily Scrum. When there's 5 or more overlapping work hours, meaning work hours where everyone is available together, we just need to pick the first time in the morning, the earliest time where everyone is available together, which is pretty manageable. But when there's a lot of differences, meaning 8 hours time zone difference, and there's only a few overlapping work hours, it's pretty hard to agree on a time for the daily Scrum. You must schedule the daily Scrum first thing in the morning for David, but Jane on the other side of the world is ending her day. There's a few practical ways to handle this situation, starting with picking a time that suits most people in the team. Let's say the team has 8 people. You pick a time that suits 5 people in the team, but the 3 others, they won't like that. The second option is doing different daily Scrums and recording the sessions. Maybe the Scrum Master can record the session and ensuring that people watch the actual daily Scrums. So each group, each daily Scrum, they plan their day. They plan their day on how to get closer, build a plan on how to get closer to the sprint goal for their daily Scrum. And each one of the teams do that. And each one of the teams watch the other recording to ensure that they are in sync. But the problem is, how do we collaborate? How do these two teams collaborate? How do we quickly handle all the issues, manage all the issues? I've even seen some teams completely replacing the daily Scrum with 2 status meetings per week where everyone in the team syncs together. Yeah, it's better. You don't need to do it first thing in the morning, so everyone can pick a time that best suits them. But what happens for the other days? How do we collaborate together? How can we quickly respond to issues in the team? You can't do that. And for all these options are bad. I don't like using these options. What I always recommend doing is co-location. Co-location. At least the same time zone. When working remotely, how can you have a Scrum team without collaborating? It doesn't work. It's not optimal. But I understand also that some people now work remotely. It's trending. Okay. That's cool. You can work from different locations. What I like using, though, is Geekbot.com. It's a tool that allows you to asynchronously do the daily Scrum. So everyone posts their updates in this tool. Everyone sees, what did I do yesterday? What will I do today? Any blockers? Everyone does that. Everyone is seeing what each other is doing. You can tag people. You can notify when you need help. You can talk to each other using this tool. So everyone is doing the daily Scrum together and in different time zones. Even if David is starting their day and Jane is ending her day, they can still collaborate because everything is in this application. When David starts his day, he can see what Jane had added previously in the daily Scrum channel of the application. It's a great application, but I'm not gonna lie, it's not ideal. What I like is this face-to-face conversation, co-location, working together, sitting next to each other. That solves a lot of issues that you'll have when working remotely. The collaboration is simply on another level when you are co-located with a person. But if you can't do that, cheek, but pretty good. Next is the sprint planning. Same thing. If you can agree on a time for the sprint planning where everyone is available, yeah, do a single sprint planning session. It works like any other sprint planning session. You just do it remotely. There's a lot of tools that allows you to do that. If there's no overlapping work hours, you do it asynchronously. Same thing. Instead of having a single sprint planning event, you do it using an application asynchronously, starting with a product owner describing the epics, the user stories, maybe even recording himself or herself doing it, then posting it in an application where people can ask questions, leave comments, and all these things are done asynchronously because the developers, to refine the story, the developers will have questions, and then they can post the questions, tag the product owner in the application, and the product owner can reply. There's a lot of tools that allow you to do that. Slack allows you to do that. You can have a single channel for sprint planning and have everyone collaborating asynchronously together. Yeah, it's not ideal. Yeah, it takes more time, but still, it's possible to do that. And the same process applies. Estimation. At the time of estimation, you can have small groups of developers collaborating together and then estimating work together, doing the planning poker together, and then posting the result in the group chat where other people can agree or disagree using thumbs up or thumbs down and all that. There's a lot of ways to do that. Be creative with it. If you use this method, it's no longer a single session. The sprint planning will be spread across multiple days, and you can even start it first thing after the sprint planning. When you start refining stories, you already create the channel for the sprint planning and you already do the sprint planning, which is basically refining the stories, collaborating together using this application, estimating for each one, completely refining a story and moving on to the next, and you might even finish the sprint planning prior to the end of the current sprint. It's pretty good. And the sprint retrospective, same thing. If you can't agree on a time where everyone is available, you do the sprint retrospective asynchronously using an application. Same thing. On a time where everyone is available, you do the sprint retrospective asynchronously. You use the same application that you would be using for the sprint planning. You create a channel for the sprint retrospective where everyone can add what went well, what can be improved, what do they want to work on, what improvements they want to add in the next sprint. That's the easy part, adding stuff. The hard part is actually talking about this stuff and agreeing on these improvement items, and you can create multiple threads for each one of these improvement items. Create a thread and let people asynchronously talk together. This will be spread across multiple days where they will discuss each one of these improvement items and agree on an improvement action they will be taking in the next sprint or the sprints after. And all this can be done asynchronously. Now, very important, the role of a product owner and the Scrum Master also need to adapt to this way of working. What happens in the team when the team is working and the Scrum Master or the product owner no longer available? They're already off work because of a time zone difference. What happens? The team can't ask questions. The Scrum Master is not here to help the team resolve impediments, so they stop working. No. We need to adapt to this, and we need to a mature team, a self-organized and self-managed team. They need to be able to manage the work better and do all the things that the Scrum Master usually does. When the Scrum Master is not available, and the same thing applies for the product owner, the user stories need to be very clear. There needs to be an additional effort by the product owner to make the stories very clear, especially the why, the what, the designs very clear so that we won't get back and forth questions and it never ends. There should be a tool that the team is using so that the developers can ask questions to the product owner when the product owner is not available, already off work. And collaboration is extremely important in a Scrum team, and it's even more important when people are working remotely and with a lot of time zone differences. Collaboration in this environment is not automatic. You're not sitting next to each other and bonding together and collaborating together. No, it needs to be triggered. People need to make an effort of talking with other members in the team, which brings me to my next point. If you want more tips, insights on Agile, Scrum, personal growth, click on the video that stands out the most on the screen right now, and I'll see you in a few seconds.